All right, thank you for joining us on the RP Experience. I'm your host, Andrew Regenhardt, and today we have Dean Shackley, one of our top producing agents locally. So welcome.
Thank you, Andrew.
So Dean is actually a top producing agent here in the Southwest Florida area. He's a realtor with Kane Luxury Team at Keller Williams. Before moving to Florida, Dean actually worked 15 years in the construction, sales, and management. He had always dreamt of a career in real estate and decided to relocate to Naples with his family. And actually, with 2021 being his first year in business, he has already closed an impressive $14 million. So, Dean, congratulations on that. That, a lot of agents that are listening right now would only, literally dreamt of closing those kind of volumes. So congratulations. And we're going to talk about how you did it here through the podcast. So we're excited.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
So Dean, who are you? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, it just seems like surreal that I'm here, sitting here at this podcast with you. I mean, this was a dream of mine for many, many years. And I think it took a pretty big life event in order to get me to shift and make that move. And I don't know, I call it my biggest blessing, and we'll talk about it later, but I don't know that I would have had anything else to make me move off my rock, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
You get comfortable,
100%.
complacent, and, I call it my biggest blessing because of that. And now not only am I here in Naples, I'm pursuing my dream, my passion in real estate, and to be all honest, not half bad.
Yeah.
So
it's been great. Yeah, exactly. Modest. It would be saying not half bad. So yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about that. That has been something that has been huge in your life. Obviously it's affected yourself, your family, you relocated. I know a little bit about it, obviously getting to know you. But tell the listeners a little bit. It was a heart defect, which required some surgery. So, how did this all happen, and how did you discover it?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I'm no stranger to surgeries, operations, and procedures. It's going to date me a little bit, but back in 1987, when I was born, the doctors seen through the ultrasound that I had some issues with my heart. They were able to pick up that I was probably going to be born with a congenital heart defect, transposition of the great vessels, and all that means for all the cardiac listeners out there is, or those that aren't a cardiac listener, cardiac professional, is that the ventricles in the bottom chamber of my heart are flip-flopped. So the left is the right and the right is left. So by design, the bottom chambers of your heart are designed to do two things. One side's to pump oxygen-rich blood to your body. The other side's to your lungs. So one side's stronger than the other because it's got to go further through your body. Well, mine are switched. So the stronger one is doing the job to the lungs, and so
the weaker
overpowered.
One,
yeah, it's
underpowered.
But what that does over time is it causes the ventricle to stretch out. They were able to, through open heart surgery, they were able to repair those. But what that caused was I would always have to have a pacemaker all of my life. So here I am walking around. I don't even know if you know that, but I've always had a pacemaker. People ask me all the time, what's it like having a pacemaker? I don't know. I don't know what a normal heart rhythm feels like.
Yeah. So when they say that, when you go through TSA, you're like, I'm the one that asked, when they always are like, any pacemakers? You're like, me.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like, no. You're like, I'm the one.
Yeah. And, you always get those funny looks from people when you're like this and you're getting patted down and everybody's like, oh,
exactly.
What's that guy got?
You're like, I got something here in my heart. So
yeah,
exactly. So you had surgery kind of recently though, right?
2019. 2020.
Okay, 2020.
Yeah, it was supposed to be in 2019, and it got delayed because of I got sick. Maybe it was COVID then. I got really, really sick. They weren't able to do the operation then because, it's a pretty significant surgery.
For sure.
So they wanted to wait, and then it got pushed to January 14th of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. So I met with my cardiologist at St. Luke's in Kansas City. the severity and how complicated the surgery was, they referred me to the Mayo Clinic. I got to the Mayo Clinic, and the surgeon said, "Dean," I'll never forget these words, is, "Dean, I'm afraid you waited too long." And I'm like, look at my wife in the waiting room, like with the doctor. I'm like, what does that mean? I've waited too long. What are my options? Mm-hmm. And he said, "I'm afraid we may have to delay this and just put you on the heart transplant list. Your ventricle is so stretched out from your leaking valve, it's tried to overcompensate due to your heart failure that you're starting to have." And I'm like, when you get that kind of news, you're like, you've played back through all the things in your life you wish you would have done real quick. Mm-hmm. And you're like, holy cow. Yeah. This is no game. Mm-hmm. So here we are in the room, and the doctor's just giving us this news, and my wife's crying. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to cry. I feel hopeless, and I feel helpless. And she said, "But wait, I know Dr. Duraney is the best cardiac surgeon in the world. Mm-hmm. And if he can't do it, nobody can. I want to talk to him first." Yeah. So we go back to Kansas City, and a couple days later, Dr. Duraney calls me. And it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of like what you would imagine if you spoke to God, mm-hmm. in a way, just like this very powerful, very intelligent, but very kind and compassionate person call you, and you're just like glued to the phone. You're like, give me some sort of hope. Yeah. Save me at this point, mm-hmm. basically. And he said, "Dean, I've done this surgery many, many times. I was looking at the data and the reports." He goes, "Yours is pretty bad. I've done worse though, and they're alive still. I would say that you have a mortality rate of about 8%. You have a mortality rate of 8%. Which in cardiology, anything over like 4 is high risk. So I had a 92% chance of living and an 8% chance of not making it out of the surgery." Mm-hmm. He said, "But I'm pretty sure I can do this." He goes, "I need you to come back up here to Mayo Clinic, and I need to look you in the eyes, and I need to see the fight in you, and I need to see that if I go through with this surgery, when the nurses come into your room and tell you to get out of bed and you got to start walking around, that you're not going to complain, whine, and moan about it. Mm-hmm. You're going to do it. You're going to listen to them." Mm-hmm. And I just told him, I said, "If you can do this surgery, there's nobody else that you should put your money on than me." I said, "I will fight like hell to get this, and I'm ready." Yeah. Because he said, "We're going to have to break your sternum open, mm-hmm. and how everybody's different as far as how the heart receives the surgery, because mm-hmm. they have to stop your heart. Mm-hmm. When they start it back up is the unknown of how your heart's going to respond. Sometimes it spazzes out, and anyway, he said it's going to be a long journey. It's going to be a long road. It's not you're going to get buttoned up and go home. Right. So
it's not a quick one.
No,
it's not an in and out.
No, it's not an outpatient surgery.
So that was in 2020, and how long was the recovery roughly?
Yeah, so I spent 3 or 4 days in cardiac ICU. You'd have to ask my wife the specifics because I was completely out. Right. I was in a medically induced coma. Mm-hmm. I just remember before I went back, the surgeon came to get me. This is a moment I'll never forget either. He came to get me, and he looked at my wife, and he said, at the time we had 3 kids, and he said, "Don't worry, I know what's on the line." Mm-hmm. First time I'd ever had the surgeon actually come get me. First time I've actually had the surgeon speak to my wife and give her that promise. Yeah. And immediately I was like overwhelmed with relief. Like, mm-hmm. this is going to be all right. And I just remember telling my wife, even if I'm out of it, just, whisper to me, it went good or it went bad, because, everybody was up. It was up in the air. Yeah. And I remember waking up and just in so much pain. Mm-hmm. But she was the one that woke me up, and she said it went textbook. Nice. And then I just remember going, back to sleep. I can relax now.
Sleep for the next 4 days.
Yeah. So I spent a total of 3 weeks up there in Mayo Clinic, and it snowed every day.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, in Rochester. Right?
Rochester, Minnesota, yep.
I won't bore you with my story because it's not even close, but I did have to go to Mayo because I had a benign tumor that, long story short, when they first looked at it, they thought it was malignant. And so made a big kind of a stink out of it, which was not good. Obviously scared my mom a lot, and I thought it was cancerous for a while, but then went to Mayo, and they had to take away all the bone or the tumor and put bone graft and everything and my tibia up. But so I know my Mayo Clinic with you.
Yeah,
so
greatest place on earth.
it really is. It's amazing what they do there. So
I tell people it's like a parachute. You hope you never need to pull it, but if you do, you're glad it's there.
Exactly. Amen to that. Well, good. So let's transition to real estate, because obviously you're down here and you've been slaying it. So 2021 was your first year in business, and you helped close around 15 million within your first year. So just what would you say to someone now, a year and a half, 2 years later, after you just got started, that all are looking into getting into real estate? What kind of advice would you just say to someone that's getting going?
Yeah, my biggest piece of advice is quit listening to people. Put your head down and get to work. I think so many people are enamored by the fear of what somebody's going to say. Pick up the phone and get the business. Text for the business. Call. You sit there and delay, and you get nowhere. You just spin your wheels. And then everybody in this business, everybody's got an opinion, right? Mm-hmm. But you got to figure out what's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And what is going to work 100% of the time is getting to work. And I think a lot of people struggle with that because they don't have the contract memorized, or they don't have the process figured out because they've never been through it. I've always been the type to say yes and figure it out later. I figured I'm smart enough to figure it out on the back end.
Yeah.
I just need the work to practice on.
Yeah.
So
powerful. So you closed a lot of deals, and one of the deals that I remember chatting with you when we first got when I had the pleasure of meeting you, you had talked about a listing kind of far away, but it was a big listing.
Yeah.
So what was that one all about?
Yeah. So I called on a listing that was sitting on the market previously for 1,400 days. It was in Islamorada, Florida.
1,400.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So just imagine this first-year real estate agent calling and saying, "Hey, I know your property that you've had listed for $8.5 million has been sitting for 1,400 days. I'm going to sell it for you." I think the guy thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
But I went down there and I interviewed for the property. The guy had no clue that this was like my first big listing.
Right.
And we got to talking. He brought the listing all the way down to $5.5 million trying to sell it, and it wouldn't sell. So we came down there and restaged it. We did new photos and new marketing and video, and we got to talking, and he's like, "What do you think we ought to list it at?" And I said, 8.7. Let's go up from where you had it. And he's like, "You got to be kidding me. You are crazy." And so I said, "Yeah, I think now that the house is displayed the way that it should be, we'll sell it." And within 44 days, we had 2 offers, and it ended up closing at 8.55.
Wow.
So $8,550,000.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
yeah.
Now you drove a lot during those couple months, huh?
Yeah. So
Keys is not that close.
No, unfortunately, it's not, especially by car and in season. So one of the value adds that I told him was a property that's $8.5 million. You've got to have representation on site whenever you're showing it, whenever you're doing open houses, and it's going to be me. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "You're going to come for every showing, aren't you, in Naples?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "How far is that?" And I said, 3. It's only 3.5 hours. So 7.5 hours. And I'd get onesie, twosie showings here and there too. They never came in a batch.
Of course not.
No. So I was there for every showing of that property, but I was able to speak to the property and all the nuances of it, and really be able to do what I feel real estate agents should do is sell. Mm-hmm. You are in the selling business,
right?
And you can't do that from afar.
Yeah.
But if he were to give me the listing, I promised him that I would give him that representation.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So it just goes back to show that you put in the work and obviously rewarded, and the client was rewarded, right? You did what he wanted in the beginning the correct way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to show if he would have hired the right person first, he would have sold it a long time ago,
yeah,
right? And saved the money and the time and the effort and whatnot.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Another thing I would suggest is, I get asked all the time, Dean, how do I get into the luxury space? You become luxury in everything that you do. You don't show up to the listing presentation or an open house or showing appointments in flip-flops and shorts. I know that we're in Southwest Florida, but represent your client and your business and your brand as a luxury agent. Mm-hmm. That means dressing the part, looking the part, talking the part, and being the part. You can't just get into luxury by accident. Mm-hmm. You have to be luxury before you can get into it. Mm-hmm. And I've got people that remind me when a crazy deal is starting to fall apart that, Dean, you're luxury. Mm-hmm. Remember, shout out to Kelly Roderick for keeping me on point with that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So. There you go. I love that. Well, the podcast, we recorded a lot of these podcasts. The podcast before you said, dress for success, and it kind of goes back to that. It's like, heard plenty of stories of realtors. I mean, that, they had to get a different car or whatnot. And do you have to have the nicest, newest car? No, but you can't have, a beater, right?
Yeah.
You can't have, like the clients want to, if they're going to spend quote unquote 500,000, $1 million with you, 5 million with you, like what are they driving around? What are their kind of expectations in a sense is, should you outdo your clients? Probably not, right? No. You probably shouldn't have the Lambos and whatnot, like trying to drive them around and stuff. It's not very practical, but it's just, you want to be on their kind of same playing field, right?
Yeah.
Some common ground. So interesting. What about farming? And you're new. Everyone says, right? You said don't listen to people. Probably everyone told you to farm one area and only one area. So do you do it? Not? Do you like it?
I always say I farm Florida. I've never understood the whole farming thing. I think it works. And again, that's back to what works for you. I've always been the type to whatever it takes. I'm new in this industry. I'm not going to turn away opportunity. If that means an $8.5 million. I mean, would you drive to Isla Mirada for $8.5 million? I mean, that closing check was like $380,000. Would you drive that?
Yeah.
Okay. Me too. Mm-hmm. So to say that I don't go to Isla Mirada because I don't know, it's too far.
Yeah.
I farm all of Florida.
Yeah.
I'll go as far as Orlando. I've done a deal in Orlando, and as far south as Isla Mirada.
Nice. I love it. Now, you probably have people that come down and they want to see Florida and they want to live down here. What would you recommend, or where do you usually bring, potential clients or clients when they're visiting? Yeah.
So one of my favorite places is La Playa.
Mm-hmm.
I like to take if I want to show them a good experience.
R.I.P. right now.
Yeah, no joke. Or the Turtle Club.
Yeah,
another one.
Both of them are like,
Yeah, but amazing sunsets and having a cocktail or dinner on the water. Mm-hmm. Can't beat that. Shout out to the bevy if you want a good old fashioned.
Oh, that old fashioned with that bacon.
Oh man,
top notch.
That's an old fashioned that my wife will even drink. So, that's where I like to go and really show off. And, I'd like to take them out on the water too. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the greatest things about Naples.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a different world, right? It's gorgeous out there. And I think that's one of the things people actually get to enjoy year round. You understand, the cold. And I was definitely in the cold for a long time, and we boated in the cold, right? But
yeah.
We only had the few months. And so, being down here and being able to boat, I mean, that's ultimately what my parents wanted to come down here for, was like, hey, we get to boat all year round, you know? Now my fiance, being from Texas, when we get out on the boat during these times, she's like in sweatshirts and stuff and a blanket. And I'm like, hey, it's not that bad. Now I'm even in a sweatshirt because I'm used to it. But, most people that come down here, they're coming from the cold and like, this is beautiful. And you're like, it's a little chilly right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, we're spoiled, right?
It's crazy how your body acclimates to it, right?
Oh, for sure. It happened way too quick. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
I came down here and I was like, it is incredibly hot. I cannot stop sweating, like, dying. And then I'm like, I was telling you, we were just in Mexico looking at wedding venues, and it was 70s. And I was in a sweatshirt because it was 70s, and it wasn't like a hot 70. It was like a cold 70,
Yeah.
And I was like, this is cold.
Yeah. And if I was in Kansas still and it was 70, in December, we'd be running around shirtless.
Oh yeah. Short. 40 degrees, 50 degrees after a cold winter came around, you're in shorts, like you're running around in shorts, getting stuff done, and you're already like warm,
Yeah, for sure.
It's insane. All right. So you had mentioned taking your clients out, and getting out on the water. What do you and your family like to do on the weekends? Or how do you guys kind of disconnect a little bit?
Yeah. So I think Naples has 270 days of sunshine on average.
Terrible.
So that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Is you can be outside all year round, basically. Yeah. And that's what we like to do. We like to be on the water. We like to boat. I like to go fishing whenever I get to. I've got 4 kids, so I'm a little busy with that right now. It's a busy season, but they enjoy the water too, and that's what we do. If we're not out on the water, we're outside working out. What a world we live in. It's December 7th, and I did a workout outside today.
Yeah,
and awesome. So that's. I always say, like, in the Midwest, you buy the biggest house you can because you spend 4 to 6 months hunkered down in the winter and you've got nothing to do. So you got to have like a game room, you got to have a court for this or whatever. In Naples, like you don't really need that big of a house because you, like us, we're never in it. We're usually in the pool or out on the water or whatnot. And that's what our kids love. And, I got to say, I get asked all the time, do you have any regrets? And moving down here, and the only regret is not doing it sooner.
Not sooner. Is exactly.
And my kids will tell you the same thing. They love it. Yeah. And they're still wearing shorts to school.
I know. It is ridiculous. I go back and visit or whatever, and people always like, would you move back? No. I'll come visit, but I'm not going to move back.
That's right.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, Dean, I wish we could keep talking. We're already out of time. It is. Flies
we could
by.
if you invite me to your wedding.
There you go. We'll keep talking. No, that's the worst spot because the person getting married doesn't even get to say hi to people, and it flies back.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? Like I was talking to Clarissa about that. I was like, baby, this is going to go by so quick.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
We're putting all this effort, work, whatnot to like make this special. And it's going to fly by.
For sure.
So we'll do something outside of it where we can actually have conversation.
Yeah.
And not be, hey, same thing at events, these RP events. I'm hi, and then like someone else comes. I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta go. And then, it's like you don't actually have. It's all the hi. How are you doing? Good. Okay, I gotta go. It's very fluff.
Yeah. I didn't even realize you were there.
I know. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, good. Well, thank you so much, Dean, for coming on here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, as always, the RP Experience is extremely thrilled to have you on here. We're here at Venture X in the podcast studio. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode.